let's segue into the TBC talk. 5 mistakes Blizzard must avoid for classic TBC. Okay. Okay, WillE, you think you know? Let's play it. What is it? Wait.
Ladies and gentlemen, WillE here. Today we're talking about a few of the issues which I think Blizzard need to pay particular attention to when rolling out the Burning Crusade Classic. Not in any particular order at all, but these are just a few of the larger ones which really do need some consideration. The first thing that comes to mind though, and probably one of the biggest ones, is spell batching and melee leeway.
True.
So back pre-launch of Classic, when Blizzard first made a post that they were going to look at implementing these systems back, it was met with a rapturous applause. There were very few dissenting opinions that this wouldn't be something which would be required for the game to really capture that vanilla feeling that it had moved away from, and that it would be necessary to preserve some interactions like double polymorphs or double charges, for example. But the way that it's ended up being implemented has been quite different from how it was back in vanilla, with every single spell and interaction being equally treated and subject to the spell batching loop. When you buy items from shops, they're delayed. Sometimes you feel like you got your cast off,
Dude, like, the fact that spell batching and leeway has made, particularly spell batching, the fact that it's made it this far into the game, the fact that we've had it for a year and a half, how in the fuck? Like, no one likes it. It is objectively, the window is objectively too long. You can run through a mage's blizzard and not get slowed. If you time it, you can just run through a mage's AoE and take no damage and not get slowed. Like, it's so stupid. It's just so stupid.
Recasting and you get interrupted, landing a heal, and then your target dies.
Stupid.
Using execute, your rage disappears, but it does no damage. Using feign death, and it just straight up fails, vanishing and getting instantly knocked out of it. There are so many negative examples that it is brought on, much more so than the positive side. And I think now of all times, having had well over a year of experiencing how spell batching looks in the iteration Blizzard has implemented it in Classic, I'm not surprised that many players are saying, well, actually, I think it could be better. And for the sake of TBC, where we have things like Arena, which are a much more competitive form of PvP.
Arena with spell batching. Do I need to, like, I just wanted to think about that. Arena with spell batching. Nothing more has to be said. Just imagine what that's going to look like. It's going to be so bad.
As well as all the new PvE content, the game would very much benefit as a whole from some kind of reduction or removal of both of these effects. As for spell batching, it wasn't entirely removed until Warlords of Draenor actually, as per...
Okay, I can explain spell batching for you super visually right here, okay? This, watch. Look at my bag. Okay, watch this. I'm going to go buy a bunch of water. The game operates in batches, so anything you do in this certain small time frame happens on the back end of it, right? So what is like 7/10 of a second, or what is the batch window? So let me open up Paint. Hold up. I'll give you an illustrative visual, and then I'll show you an in-game example. Okay, this is the effect of batching. All right. So does anyone know the time interval? Where's my fucking Twitch chat, dude? Hold up. There it is. 400 ms. Okay. So this is 400 ms. This is 400 ms. This is 400 ms. Okay. So everything that happens. Let's say you cast a spell here, or register an input here. It doesn't actually happen until the game registers it and implements it right here. Anything you do in this doesn't happen until right here. Same. So the game operates in these intervals of batch windows. So this is a batch window. So anything you do, doesn't matter. And I can show you how stupid this is. Watch this. I'm going to buy a fuck ton of tough hunk of bread, okay? I love me some tough hunks, and I'm going to buy them. Watch. I'm just going to spam click this. I'm going to spam the fuck out of this. Watch my bag, okay? Watch how long it takes for this to show up. I'm just going to spam click. Did you see that? There you go. That was a batch window. You see that? That is how batching. So imagine that. Imagine that. Same operation in TBC Arena. Same thing. It's fucking ridiculously stupid. Ridiculously stupid. Let's keep playing the video. So imagine that in Arena. Stupid as fuck. We all agree. Stupid as fuck. Yep.
per my research, which was a lot later than I thought it was. However, nowadays with our modern connections, which not many people are running at 400 ms all day every day and are just better PCs in general, this is more of a relic which is hampering gameplay than adding things to it. I think it really does move the goalposts on the skill cap, especially in PvP, but then again, is it required to keep some certain interactions in the game? I mean, even to this day on retail, you can still def CC, you can still vanish Death Coil, for example. Those are just how those abilities work and interact with each other.
Yeah, so as far as like PvP interactions go, it makes it so, let's say having a batch window this big makes it so two mages can polymorph each other at the same time, right? Let's, like, back to the paint example. Let's say this, okay, real quick. There's a batch window. There's a batch window. There's a batch window. This is Mage 1. Here's a batch window. Here's a batch window. Here's a batch window. This is Mage 2, okay? Mage 1 starts casting Polymorph, you know, like, okay, how can I put this? The cat, just pretend Polymorph is instant cast for the sake of this example. Mage 1 starts casting Polymorph here. Mage 2 starts casting Polymorph here. As far as PvP goes, that's a pretty considerable amount of time. Both the polymorphs, if they were instant cast, or you could use Death Coil as an example, right? They would both land here. They would both be CC'd. Even though he technically had the input first, they both did it in the same batch window. What would happen is they would both get polymorphed at the exact same time. So it's really dumb. It makes it so you can Death Coil polymorph, or, you know, two warlocks can Death Coil each other at the same time, or it's just stupid. It's just stupid.
And always have been. It's not just strictly because of batching that those interactions exist.
It's
also think about the reliance on pillars in arena combat, and having you run around a pillar and a melee class still being able to hit you, seemingly while they're on the other side of it. This would go doubly so for Tauren warriors. I'm very much hopeful for TBC that we can basically get rid of melee leeway.
As far as melee leeway, hold my hand for a second, chat. Let's pretend that this fountain, and it's a little bit bigger, but, you know, for the sake of the example, let's pretend that this fountain in Stormwind is the pillar in the Grand Arena. There's 4 pillars. Let's pretend this is one of the pillars. And of course, it's a little bit bigger than actual, but, you know, this is what it is. If I'm a Tauren warrior on this side of the pillar and I'm moving, because batching only goes into, or leeway only goes into effective removing. If I'm sitting here and there's a target of mine on the other side of the pillar right here, right? If I'm a Tauren warrior, I can auto attack through the pillar and hit him, because my melee leeway window is so incredibly big. He can auto attack people that are on the other side of the pillar in TBC if we keep the current melee leeway system. So it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting.
And that spell batching is either considerably reduced to like 50 ms tops, or just straight up removed, and each ability gets answered by the server side as soon as possible. Next up, world buffs and consumable stacking. Both of these will still be in TBC from launch if it is in any way progressive. Now, I don't really think it would be progressive, or it may be in some parts than not others, but this is one of those areas where it does really need to be looked at.
Yeah, it was like up until patch 2.1, world buffs you could take all the way up to level 70. And then I think it was 2.1, they changed it so world buffs don't work past level 63. So if you're level 62, you could go get Ani head, whatever, sure. But the second you're 63, they don't apply to you anymore.
If it's something that could possibly happen.
So hopefully we get that.
Consumable stacking is just crazy from what you need compared to other versions of the game to vanilla. I imagine most people have at least a bank ult which is stacked to the brim with various different items, because you just need such a wide variety of items per raid, as well as world buffs, which were at this point in vanilla becoming more and more apparent and more frequently used to aid raid progression. This carried on over into TBC, where the early tiers, especially the likes of Magtheridon's Lair, Gruul's Lair, and so on, were considered successors in Naxxramas to the difficulty level, and as such, players who had started to realize the power of world buffs went back and got them from the old world and then took them over to Outland again. And if we release full-on progressively, world buffs will still exist, all the way up to patch 2.1.
Yeah, so Method's first kill on Lady Vashj, this is prior to patch 2.1. They had world buffs. They had Dragon Slayer, Spirit of Zandalar, they had Spirit Zanza, He had... Doesn't look like they have DMT buffs, but they brought in some world buffs.
It's at that point in time when Blizzard made world buffs no longer work on characters above level 63, and all consumables were changed, so they're now either Guardian or Battle Elixirs. For example, Spirit of Zanza was made into a Guardian Elixir, Mongoose was made into Battle Elixir, and Flasks count for both of them, which reduced the enormous list of consumables you needed for vanilla down to flask, food, potion, and you're basically good to go. Overall, this really streamlines raid preparation, takes a lot of the annoyance out of wiping.
Would you consider a Zanza a world buff? Like kind of, but kind of not. Like, I don't know. Like, it kind of.
When you lose so much invested time, and it should make for a more enjoyable experience overall, so I'm hoping this is in from launch. Speaking of another thing from launch, let's talk about the way that TBC was rolled out back when it was the current version of the game.
Okie dokie.
So on launch, there was an enormous amount of PvE content available. You had all of the dungeons and heroic dungeons, except Magister's Terrace, which was introduced alongside the Sunwell. You had Karazhan, Gruul's Lair, Magtheridon's Lair, Serpent Shrine Cavern, Tempest Keep, and technically Mount Hyjal, with the big barrier to entry being the achievements between one piece of content and the next, but they were all available technically. It just took for the players to work out and progress their way through the content to actually reach the next step. This will be like Classic releasing.
And the fact that a lot of tier 5 content was just bugged, right? So, weird fun fact. No one killed Kael'thas. To finish the tier 6 attunement, you have to kill Kael'thas and Lady Vashj and do some other stuff in order to finish the attunement to get into Black Temple. No one even killed Kael'thas before Black Temple was in the game. They added patch 2.1. This is Black Temple patch. And then like a week later, I think it was 10 days later, after Black Temple's already in the game, they add the patch 2.1, Black Temple patch. 10 days, I believe 10 days. 10 days later, they nerf Kael'thas. They fixed him. He was just super bugged. He was pretty much unkillable, right? They fixed him, people killed it, and then they went to Black Temple. So, yeah, like, and then same for Hyjal. Like, Hyjal was technically in the game. I don't think anyone did Hyjal, though, because they couldn't beat T5 content. But, yeah, I mean, like, obviously it was bugged back then. It was available, though. So, yeah, I mean, like, anyone reasonable would agree. This is my opinion, that whenever Classic TBC comes out, they should time gate Tier 5 and Tier 6. Just time gate it. So for the first couple months, we only have Tier 4, and then you release Tier 5, and then you release Tier 6 later. That's my take. That's what they should do.
With Molten Core and Blackwing Lair open at the same time, it doesn't take long to realize that Molten Core loot is by and large going to be pretty useless after a short space of time, and we will see this happen just again if Tier 4 and Tier 5 are available at the same time, because the speed at which players blast through content nowadays is just unreal. I definitely think the game would benefit from having these two phases segregated out, so that we can enjoy and fully see one through before the next thing comes out. And it would also give us more to look forwards to in the future in terms of new gear and itemization. Also, if you're big on PvP, I would think you'd want the content phases to be separated out a bit more, because in the Burning Crusade there are 3 tiers, but there are 4 PvP seasons, and the PvE content that's made available sort of overtakes PvP gear.
Well, I mean, Sunwell is its own tier, it's its own patch. Like, yeah, it's technically tier 6, but like a lot of the gear that drops is way better than Black Temple gear. I consider Sunwell to be like tier 6.5, and it coincides with Arena Season 4. It's its own thing. I wouldn't really call it like, tier 6.
Yeah, and then PvP stuff catches back up again. So for example, early on if we release with Tier 5, people are going to have access to Serpent Shrine Cavern loot, to Tempest Keep loot, to Stun Herald, while you're sitting there in your PvP Season 1 gear still. And it wasn't, back in the day at least, until after Black Temple had released, until PvP Arena Season 2
It is such a no-brainer.
And even then you're
what
not
they
really
should do
catching
with this,
up with
right?
Tier 5 gear. Then again, Resilience.
Like, you have 4 major content patches that coincide with the Arena Seasons. Boom. And then you can have like it would be phase 3.5, which is where you add Zul'Aman, because Zul'Aman came out between Black Temple and between Sunwell Plateau. So you have like 5 phases. Phase 1, which is Tier 4 in Arena Season 1. Phase 2, which is Arena Season 2 and Tier 5. And then Phase 3, which is Black Temple and Arena Season 3. And then you have phase 3.5 or Phase 4, whatever you want to call it, which is Zul'Aman. And that's it. And then you have phase 5 at that point, or phase 4, however you want to count the other one. And then you have Arena Season 4. Boom. Like, this is such a no-brainer, right?
Is much of its own thing, but it does open up different avenues where people performing at high level PvE content will have the edge on certain items like trinkets or weapons. And with the idea that the content could be split up more is the potential that we will once again see the best version of our class alongside the easiest version of the content. This is what happened in Classic. We had our 1.12 itemization, our talents, our abilities, and our classes were just so much more powerful than they would have been back at launch. Now, to a certain degree, there was a lot more learning, shall we say, going through vanilla. Our classes on day one looked absolutely nothing like they did by...
I really, really doubt we're going to have progressive, like, we didn't even really have progressive itemization. With a couple of items we did, but I doubt we're going to have super crazy progressive itemization in Classic TBC. I doubt we're going to have progressive talents and skill trees. I mean, because if they wanted to really recreate that, they would be tweaking talents and skill trees like every 2 or 3 weeks. Is that like this is my thing? Run with 2.4.3 talents and skills. Run with it. Just don't have the nerfed raids. Have the original raids, have the original attunements, have everything like that, and keep it simple. Like I think progressive itemization in TBC is not as dangerous either as it was in Classic Vanilla. Items just didn't change as much. They changed a little bit, but not as much. So I don't know. I think it'll be fine. Just don't have the crazy nerfed raids. And when people think of TBC raid nerfs, actually a lot of the raids got nerfed. Like I think the big nerfs people are thinking of was in patch 3.0, which was the Wrath of the Lich King pre-patch. So just obviously don't have that stuff. And then, revert some of the other smaller nerfs that happened throughout the course of TBC. And I think it's going to be fine. I really do.
By the final one, with many tweaks made to try and fit classes into their niche, make them a bit more powerful, or just give them a bit of a leg up in general. By TBC, there is a lot more balance across the classes, and each class brings something unique and is valuable in one way or another. Not everyone's going to be topping the meters, but at least now as a raid leader, you have a reason to want every single class and spec in your raid, which is a really good thing. But if we do go into TBC with 2.4.3 classes, as well as the earlier raids nerf, I think it's just going to be Molten Core all over again, where it's so much easier than anybody expected. But now with Tier 4 instead, when Blackwing Lure came out, there was how many challenges in there really? Firemore, and then AQ, you have Twin Emperors perhaps, Oro, Viscidus as the challenges, and then finally in Naxxramas, we're starting to see some actual time period appropriate class balance, itemization balance, talent balance, and wow, look, people are actually starting to wipe now because of that. I'm just hoping TBC doesn't end up being another very trivial PvE content route up to the Sunwell where it suddenly becomes hard. And there are a number of ways to do that because just like Classic, our itemization, our characters got stronger and stronger as the expansion went on, whilst the raids got nerfed. So I hope there is some kind of balance struck there. Finally, AoE.
I've heard a lot of people say, like, oh, these classic Andes are hoping for harder raids in TBC. Yeah, well, Naxxramas is hard and your guilds are crumbling and the game's dying. So, like, is that what you really want? Here's the thing, like, this is the reality. Naxxramas is not insanely hard. It's expensive. It's just so expensive. And so many servers, the economies are just shot to hell with bots and gold buying and gold selling. So it's just, like, it's this problem that just feeds off of itself. Nax is not hard. The problem guilds are having is not difficult. It's not difficulty. It's, we ran out of consumes and now we can't do this. TBC, if you want to call it difficulty, so be it. TBC is difficult in a different way, or it's more difficult in a different way. It's not as expensive. TBC raiding, you can be much more casual and raid at a much higher level in TBC. You don't have to be insanely sweaty and raid log for 4 days with world buffs and, have an insane amount of consumables. You don't have to do that. TBC is a bit easier as far as consumables and preparation goes, but the encounters themselves are more challenging, which I think is a much more fun raiding experience. Like, it's more fun to wipe knowing you didn't lose as much. Because if you wipe in vanilla, it's like, okay, well, the world buffs I spent 6 hours getting and raid logged for 2 days with are gone now. And now I have to spend another 200 gold on my consumes, which I need to pop. I need to pop my GFPP or my GSPP, and then my 3 elixirs, and my flask is ticking, and da-da-da-da-da. And all of this stuff adds up in price. Whereas with TBC, it's like, oh, we wiped. All right, let's go again. It's kind of more like that vibe. So I don't accept the conflation of like, Next Ram's difficulty to TBC rate difficulty. I think it's a really bad comparison.
Caps. So in patch 2.2, Blizzard finally put a stop to the ridiculousness of certain classes, looking at mages, and what they're able to achieve using AoE. So at this point in Classic, it's extremely well documented. There's dozens and dozens of videos out there on YouTube on Zul'Farrak, on doing Maradon, pulling over 350 mobs, doing ZG, you name it. People have absolutely cracked the code, and I can't help but thinking, but if players ever got to this level of proficiency back in vanilla, this would have been nerfed really fast, because this is just
I agree.
beyond what any other class can achieve.
I
so
agree.
in Burning Crusade, when the changes finally hit, it definitely shifted up the power paradigm that classes had within the content. Not every single AoE ability is strictly cap though. Basically, if your ability targets the ground and has an aiming reticle like Blizzard, Hurricane, Volley, Rain of Fire, anything like that, they are
TBC, as far as AoEing and boosting and AoE farming, the era of the prot paladin, dude. Guys, I need one more piece of gear on my prot paladin. It is the tier 2 belt. It drops off of Veil. Last night, I actually went into a Blackwing Layer soft res run. I joined Discord. I was talking to him. We go in there. I soft res the belt. No one else soft res the belt. I'm on my paladin. I'm going to get it. I'm going to complete my prop paladin gear set. You know what didn't drop? That goddamn belt. And then I was stuck in a 2.5 hour Blackwing Layer run for bosses I didn't even need. Because my goddamn belt didn't drop. It didn't drop. It was really fun though. Like, dude, the people in this soft res pug, they were the biggest giga boomers I've ever played with. There was like a grandma in the raid. Like, you could tell. She was talking. She was like, "Oh, watch out. The Draconoids are coming in. Watch out." Oh, dude, it was great. It was so fucking funny.
AoE cap, where the simple way to explain how it works is your AoE ability can do a maximum threshold of damage per the number of targets that it hits. If the numbers of targets you're hitting exceed that threshold, your damage is reduced accordingly. So for example, say a Mage's Blizzard is capped at 1000 damage per 10 mobs, and it will be doing 100 damage to each mob. If you were then hitting 20 mobs, it'd be doing 50 to each, and so on and so forth. So it really does hinder the power of AoE. But once again, this is another thing about progressive versus not progressive. It took up to patch 2.2 for something to be done about this. So if that isn't the case, we're going to see the continuation of mage boosting, of mage gold farming, and no doubt finding new ways to exploit terrain inside the new instances, which may not have ever been discovered by the private server scene, just because we have so many more players thrown at a common issue now. And whilst mages do get nerfed, paladins really take over the reins, but I don't think we're going to see a paladin pulling 300 or something mobs in at least TBC era content. In vanilla content, we'll have to wait and see.
I'll do it. I will be the one. I will do it. I'm going to be the one.
Or at least once paladins start hitting some really late game TBC gear. In any event, BlizzCon will be coming soon, and I'm hoping for a lot more information there. A big announcement on the main stage, and then hopefully a panel some point down the line where they're going to explain some of their thought processes. If anything, I just want to hear them say, this is what we did for Classic, we think this worked, we think this didn't work, and we're going to change the game around the player base rather than trying to force the players to try and play like they did back in the day, because that just hasn't really worked for Classic. Anyway.
Can you call Blizzard and tell them to make the game good instead of bad? Why didn't they think of that? Yeah, I'll call them after the stream. Dude, good idea. I can't believe that they didn't come up with that idea. Good one.
So let me know what you think. These are just a few ideas off the top of my head today. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one very soon. If you like what you see, do give the video a like and subscribe, as there will be plenty more to come. Thank you guys all so much for watching.
WillE is 5 mistakes Blizzard must avoid. There it is. GG. Excellent. Guys, listen, boys. I have a small, it's not a crazy announcement. It's a very small TBC announcement. TBC related announcement. Okay. I have a small TBC related announcement. Every day people say, stay safe. What are you going to do? Remember Classic Cast? Are you going to do anything like Classic Cast? It seems like SFON or Tip sound like they're too busy for it. It seems like it's, what's going on? Stay safe. We need a really good Classic WoW podcast that's going to talk about TBC and talk about the things that are important. And so I was like, okay, I hear your concerns. I hear you. I get it. And so here's what we're going to do. I contacted another streamer, and I said, hey, this is last night. I said, hey, would you like to do a TBC podcast with me when and if TBC is announced? Would you like to talk about TBC? We can bring on TBC experts. It'll be you and me. We can bring on members of the community. We can talk about it. Would you want to do that? And you know what he said? You know what this streamer said? He said, Keck W. He said, Keck W, yes, is what he said. That's what Joker said. So, the day after they announced TBC, we're going to start doing it. We're not going to do it yet. We're going to start after it's announced. And I don't know, probably maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. We're going to bring on other people and talk about it. And we're going to bring on experts, PvP experts, and PvE experts, and speed leveling experts, and gold farming experts. We're going to bring on the super brains of TBC. Okay? I don't know if you guys know this. Listen, experts, there is an entire TBC community that you've never even heard of. They don't play Classic. They don't stream on Twitch. All they do is they just play TBC private servers all day, non-stop TBC private servers. And come TBC, these guys are taking over. You guys thought that you had met all of the, Classic WoW, sweaty, super knowledgeable guys. You haven't even met the TBC guys yet. Wait for them. You haven't even met them yet, dude. They're out there playing TBC private servers. You haven't even met them yet. So it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.